Like, hey, buddy. Oh! Oh! I'm breakdancing in the middle of the street. Don't bother me.
Oh, shit.
Do you remember what happened last time we did a Seth Zintok video?
What was the last one we did?
Vampire.
Oh, yeah, I bought the game.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like all of a sudden, I turn around to Nick, and Nick's just like, I'm sorry. I'm like, sorry for what? I'm sorry. And then it show you that you bought it. I'm like, you're weak, Nick.
Yes.
You're weak. But
I unfortunately still haven't had time to play it yet.
Well, again, I mean, it's from what people say, it's a pretty long game, but you know, taking your time on it's perfectly fine.
I'm just taking my time even getting it started.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry, but more people have been requesting more Seth Zintok, which I'm not surprised about. And this one, Dwarf Fortress. I have no idea what the hell this is.
Yeah, not heard of it either.
Yeah. There's a lot going on in Seth's videos, and the last one we did, the Vampire, the Masquerade, was just, it blew me away with just how in-depth that game was. Every game that Seth plays has an immense amount of depth to it that I don't think has been, again, I would have never known about it if not for Seth. So, I guarantee you Seth's gonna come back once again and just be like, oh yeah, Dwarf Fortress. This game is extremely versatile. By versatile, I mean you can literally craft to the center of the earth, blow up the earth, and then make another one. I would not be surprised if
He does seem to find really niche games that have a lot of stuff you can do with them.
Well, there's one, the Federation, I believe it's called, where you literally go hop from planet to planet, stealing technology, like doing espionage and shit like that, trying to form the perfect federation, the perfect alliance. Total Biscuit talked about it in his during his podcast, and he actually got an early build of the game just to see what he thought, and he loved it. But he figured out a strat that was so strong that the that the devs completely patched over it, so no one could ever beat the game like Total Biscuit again, just because he did it so efficiently. Because usually, with all the various planets and races out there, they think, oh, you're gonna make friends with half of them and lose half of them, and you have to decide which ones that you want on your council and you want to bring into the Federation. And Biscuit, by the end of his playthrough, out of all of the races and everything, he'd only killed 2. That was it. He had only killed 2 races, and he beat the game. And the devs were just like, that is too strong of a strat. Thank you for pointing it out, Total Biscuit. We are now removing it from the game. And he was just like, bulls. Now I can't do it again.
Imagine if Mortal Kombat was just like, we're going to take out being able to cheese Shao Kahn because it's too easy.
No. I can't see that because, again, I love Ed Boon, but his team, once they set their mind on something, they're just going to, they just don't budge on it whatsoever.
So I basically heard that in Mortal Kombat 9, Shao Kahn's essentially going to wreck your entire face over and over and over again, unless you just stand at the other side of the screen and spam projectiles at him. You just can't do anything.
Yeah. Again, there's so much that those games have to them, and I'm interested to see what Ed Boon and his team at NetherRealm are going to do next, because everything that they did for Mortal Kombat 10 and 11 was actually really good.
That's what I've heard.
And I want to see more. I want to see what they're going to do next. I mean, it's holy shit. They killed it with Injustice, especially the second Injustice game. Damn, there was a lot in that. Also, me talking about Biscuit earlier, I miss Total Biscuit. Rest in peace, John. But anyway, we have a Seth Zintok video here. We have, let's go ahead and get it up on screen. And let's see what Dwarf Fortress has to offer. Knowing Seth, he's going to blow our minds with it, like he always does. Here we go.
Hey people, Sapp here. Today, I'll be covering a long-running cult classic that's still updated and developed to this very day. A game which chronicles the lives and accomplishments of stumpy alcoholics as they struggle to avoid sobriety. A game where the most ludicrous events take place daily, where civilizations rise and fall just because someone left a Necronomicon in the public library. A game where the UI is so useless and convoluted that you'd honestly have an easier time playing Microsoft Excel.
Wow.
Actually, I know a lot about using Microsoft Excel.
Dark fantasies.
No! No, Ricardo, no.
I'm speaking, of course, about Dwarf Fortress. Dwarf Fortress is less of a game and more of a complex fantasy world simulation made by one guy over 20 years, and probably for the rest of his natural and unnatural lifespan, as we plan to crowdfund Tarn Adams a synthetic body so he can focus on what truly matters. Dwarf Fortress really is one of the greatest autism projects to ever blossom. Fun fact, it's also the hardest game to run on PC. Even an i7 processor chokes and dies the moment you forget to sterilize your cats. If not for the ever-increasing technological demands of Dwarf Fortress, AMD and Intel would be bankrupt right now. To even begin playing Dwarf Fortress, you'll need some prescription medication. But more importantly, you'll need a world to play
I got some of that.
We create one, we set some parameters, and the game will then calculate 250 fucking years of history for this randomly generated world. And, depending on your computer, this may also take 250 years. Once the world is made, it's all yours. And like an abusive lover, she will caress and beat you senseless. And each time, you'll come back for more. There's two main game modes you can play in Dwarf Fortress. You can either choose to embark on distant lands and lead a fortress to ruin, or die horrifically in the pursuit of adventure. To begin, let's cover Fortress mode first. All you have to do is pick a nice place to embark, and that's about it. Despite common myths, Dwarf Fortress isn't complicated. Just follow a couple of tutorials and you'll be a seasoned veteran in no time. You should also download and use the Lazy Noob Pack because the game is almost unplayable without it. Some may disagree with this statement, but to put it simply, they're fucking wrong. These same people will—
Hold on. Wow. Look at these absolute, like, wannabe Sigma male chads.
Yeah, mega chads.
Yeah, giga chads. Like, ultra Sigma.
May disagree with this statement, but to put it simply, they're fucking wrong. These—
You know, I used to know a dude that,
Jesus, that's a Sephiroth sword.
yeah, I used to know a dude who had pictures like that.
Wow.
To be honest, that's the coolest guy out of this.
That one's actually really cool. I
that's like
that.
some historical awesomeness right there.
That's like Haytham Kenway from.
Plus, rapiers are cooler. Like, posing with rapiers is definitely cooler than posing with katanas.
That's primo.
Straight back. I wanna,
dude, look at that trailer. Look, dude. I know this kind of trailer. I lived in a trailer.
He's not wearing socks or shoes. Honestly, swear this is the same guy I played Airsoft with that had those pictures. Like, that looks a lot like Kyle.
Dude, the fucking deer rack on the wall.
Yeah.
The cowtail artwork here. The fucking heater at his feet. And what is that? A shit and piss bucket?
I don't want to know.
Oh, sick trilby there, bro.
will disagree with my choice of tile set, or the fact that I use a tile set at all. To answer these concerns and make this video that much easier to watch, I will be using all of the tile sets at random. In Fortress mode, you start out with 7 dwarves, given the difficult task of establishing civilization. The longer you survive and flourish, the more migrants will arrive from neighboring cities, attracted by the promise of your growing fortress. From there on, any number of things can happen. Disaster, tragedy, invasions, and tantrums spirals which threaten to end your fort at any given moment. But whether you live or die, just remember, losing is fun. It's impossible to cover everything, so let me tell you some stories. The first fortress I ever founded was absolutely terrible. We had no metal, so instead we fought with sticks and traded pottery for any possible scrap of metal. We also lived in constant fear. There was a were-zebra on the loose. He kept eating my chickens and trampling my dwarves. As if I couldn't escape the furry menace in real life, it torments me in my video games as well. It turned out that the were-zebra was a human musician who plays at my tavern, so I let him stay and snap a few chicken necks every month. The place was actually quite successful. 5 years on and no major invasions. What the hell? I asked my friend, who knows Dwarf Fortress, to take a look. He came back shocked and told me, "You're not at war with the goblins." How? I had no idea. My fortress was a place of culture and learning, of drunken revelry and international diplomatic renown. Life
I did too.
Weird motherfucker.
proceeded as normal. And then, one day, one of my guests of honor, a legendary human wrestler, had too much to drink and went into a murderous rage. He proceeded to grab a goblin dancer and pulled off her lower jaw. As she was screaming, he began thrashing her with her own jawbone. The situation quickly deteriorated as she retaliated back. My other dwarves, upon seeing that a man was under attack and, fearing for his life, used appropriate self-defense to remove the assailant's ability to chew food, launched into a furious brawl. It was a bloodbath that marked the beginning of a race riots. Every goblin in my fortress was slaughtered. For our acts of racial cleansing, the goblins had declared war on us, one we couldn't win, and all because some retard couldn't handle his mushroom wine. Several months later, my fortress was swallowed by the Green Horde. Those who weren't murdered walled themselves off, went crazy and consumed each other. The rest starved to death. Dwarf Fortress, a fun, light-hearted experience for the whole family. My second fortress fared slightly better until I dug too deep.
That's extremely dark.
My third? Well, we all know how this ends already, right? One of my dwarves got possessed, so I walled off his workshop, forgot about it, and accidentally opened up his crypt. In the middle of town, the nauseous fumes from his hot, decomposing body erupted across several levels, driving everyone insane from the sight and stench of his swollen cadaver. In the chaos, a mother dropped her toddler into a shallow pool of water. The child drowned, causing the mother to go into a tantrum and attack an experienced axe dwarf, who decapitated her. The dead bodies caused more tantrums, which would result in even more dead bodies, which eventually reduced my population to a single person, a single axe dwarf, who was now considered legendary, having gained enough experience from beheading everybody else. My fourth attempt was actually fine. The fortress still stands as a grisly reminder of why we have health and safety. I read online somewhere that you could train your dwarves extremely quickly by constructing a danger room. The idea is simple. We put a dwarf in.
There's so many setups for so many very interesting and unique dark fantasy stories to be gleaned from just that one playthrough.
Yeah, there is.
Like, I want to see, like, the fucking, dark fantasy horror, like, thing about the dwarves who are hiding and walling themselves off and struggling to eat and...
Wound up eating each other.
Like going insane because the goblins are just too numerous and, like, outside the walls and stuff, And then I also want to see... end up in another fantasy story, the legendary dwarf who was the only survivor of the Goblin Wars, and he now lives in the fortress by himself. Nobody can beat him because he decapitates any who come into his fortress.
Yeah. Like Derryn the Cleaver. Derryn the Head Cleaver.
In a room filled with traps, we activate them, and our brave warriors will gracefully dodge and block every single one of them. But this process wasn't fast enough, so we replaced the traps with coins. We hit the lever, and 500 freshly minted coins would harmlessly ricochet at high speed across the room, turning our dwarves into professional soldiers instantly. However, it didn't work. 500 coins suddenly ricocheted at high speed and destroyed my dwarf's windpipe. Even the best surgeons available couldn't operate quick enough to restore oxygen supply. The cause of death was ruled to be asphyxiation by legal tender. Not to be dissuaded, I tried to optimize coin training. I made my men wear 5 layers of cotton around their necks. The results? Several women were now widows, and about a dozen men were now buried without a throat. It turns out coins are very dangerous. Attempt number 5, my current and final fortress. One day, I receive a notification. One of my master engravers had just sculpted a masterpiece on the dining room wall. I find the engraving and read the description. He just sculpted a drawing of himself stabbing another dwarf, and soon after, he actually stabbed him. What an absolute lad. This was also about the time I decided to embark on a haunted biome, and my personal advice,
He's like, I've
don't
been
do
thinking
that.
about
Nothing dies.
stabbing Volgrim. First, though, I think I should paint it to make sure that's actually what I want.
It's like, well, the painting is
Several
done,
hours later.
and I still want to stab him.
Yes, I believe this actually confirms it. I definitely want to stab him.
Proceeds to stab dwarf.
Yeah.
Eyes on a haunted biome. The moment you kill an animal, it gets back up. The moment you chop off a limb, it gets possessed and tries to choke you. Did you know this applies to shellfish and crustaceans as well? I didn't, but I've just lost a good fisherman to an undead pile of lobsters.
Oh, God.
If all of this
Jujitsu.
sounds like too much to handle, then you can play adventure mode instead. Adventure mode lets you design and control a single character that can interact with, influence, and shape the world. Once again, it's impossible to cover everything, so instead, I'll share some of my character's exploits. The very first character I ever made was a human, locally renowned for his acts of heroism. I didn't know the controls and didn't really care. I spent my entire time accusing children of being vampires and throwing silver at them until they died. No one dared intervene in my righteous crusade against darkness. Incidentally, one of the people I accused was actually a vampire, who proceeded to kill me instantly to get rid of the evidence mine.
That sounds like a great story, too. It's like, this is a fucking fraud that like goes around and is like, it's a vampire. See, I will prove it to you. Vampires die from silver. And he shoots them with a silver gun, you know?
Yeah.
He's like, see, he died. Vampire.
Yes,
you
he
know?
was a vampire.
And then he keeps going along. They're like, oh, he's a famous vampire hunter. And there's a guy who's just like, really? You know?
Hey.
He's like, let me see this famous vampire hunter. And he's like, oh, you're a vampire for sure, aren't you? And he's like, ha, eat silver. And he shoots him, and the vampire just like, and just heaves it back and hits him in the head and kills him.
Actually, I could see it being like the Reddit situation. Catches the bullet. He's like, that was rude. Just like flings it back, and it just like pierces his head, and he's dead.
Yep.
That's, and the vampire is just like, puny human.
But everybody like around in the village is like, oh, and they're just like, what was that about? And he's like, see, he's like, he's not a very good vampire killer, is he?
It's not very good, is he?
There was a kobold who had successfully integrated with modern civilization. To demonstrate how integrated I was, I immediately assassinated the king. To my surprise, the guards didn't even care. My reward for committing regicide was monarchy. I had become the new ruler.
Aren't you gonna
of this
try and
kingdom.
stop
I
me?
spent the
Nah,
rest
we
of
didn't
my
really
career
like him
spreading
anyway.
rumors
Yeah.
that the previous king was murdered by myself. Everyone refused to believe it and said I, the king, was full of shit. My third character managed to find a really nice book, a book of necromancy, which I generously donated to one of my fortress libraries. After retiring from adventuring and checking up on the place, I was pleasantly surprised to find the place overrun with undead. Then I got bored and installed some lore-friendly mods. Currently, I'm playing as Vegeta, a local Saiyan prince who accidentally used instant transmission to teleport to hell. There, I learned that the wrestling system in Dwarf Fortress is extremely elaborate, allowing Vegeta to chokehold demons while he plucks out their necks. After returning from the underworld, Vegeta spent several hours vomiting on townspeople and indirectly killed a child by doing push-ups. Later that day, an elder serf refused to yield to the Saiyan prince. He rejected his generous demands for both of his shoes in exchange for his life. Now, I'm not very good at Dragon Ball Ball Z lore, but I don't remember Vegeta being able to make Destructo discs, but who gives a shit? In this mod, he can. So, I decapitated a bunch of elves with energy discs and turned into a giant ape. Then I got drunk and crawled on the floor, stealing people's genitals. In case you haven't figured this out already, Dwarf Fortress is an amazing game. And not only that, it's unique. There's nothing quite like it. It's a sandbox and you make your own fun. And if you get bored of sand, there's a billion mods out there which make the game that much more intricate and entertaining. Sure, it's hard to get into, but then again, so are nursing homes. I give it a perfect score. Perfection is subjective, which is why everyone will see something different. Or something gay. As always, more content to come, so stay tuned. This video comes out much later than expected. What's up with that, Seth? You lazy schmuck? You've not even taken our money since November. Truth be told, I took a corporate position in December. Then, I realized I can do 100 times more by myself. So, I'm going all in. Seth is going full time. A warm thanks to the many members of the Merchants Guild who have been generously funding and bankrolling these videos. You're all truly wonderful. I missed the chance to say this before, so Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and have a Happy New Year.
Damn.
It definitely seems like one heck of a game.
It definitely does. Wow.
I'm not quite sold on that one like I was with Vampire though. Like that's a game that I'm just like I don't think I have the time to 100% get into and figure that out.
And that's fine.
It's like I couldn't get into Space Engineers. I don't think I'm getting into Dwarf Fortress.
and that's fine. I mean, Space Engineers is...
Nothing against either of them. You know, it's just me brain tiny and me time tiny.
God. So, all right. Dwarf Fortress, I'll definitely say that, I mean, the intricacy is extremely impressive. Holy shit, I was not expecting it to be that intricate. But... damn, it's something I don't think I could get into. It's not really my style of game. But, oh well. I mean, if that's your style of game, go for it. I mean, have fun. Like, knock them dead.
I'm kind of hoping Seth might consider doing a sequel video to that at some point and, like, relay some of his future exploits in the game to us, because I'd like to hear more stories from it, for sure.
Oh, definitely. I mean, some of the stories in that were just tremendous. I mean, holy hell. So,
I like the style of it lends to my imagination. Like it's the game you can tell that you have to have a little bit of imagination to get into because of the way the graphics and stuff are.
Well, again, yeah,
out, you know?
it's very old and archaic.
It lends to me like having my own imagination as to like he's saying what happens and I'm just like piecing more of it together in my head. Like
I can see it too.
It's like the guards didn't stop me. Oh, we didn't like him anyway. But then I couldn't convince everyone, and they said I was full of shit. Like, you're the king? Well, I didn't vote for you. Yeah.
God. Anyway, so yeah, that was Seth Zintak, Dwarf Fortress review, Strike the Earth, praise for I can't read runes. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'm Nate.
I am Nick.
We'll see you later, everybody. Peace.